So let me start by saying a few words about academia, which is, if you take startups, it's like the complete extreme on the other side. It's considered to be slow-paced, kind of working. You know, you imagine those professors walking in Oxford, hands, behind their back, and trying to imagine what will be the next phase of innovation. So basically, well, this may be true, but basically there are three modes of operations between industry and academia. One is a short-term, which is typically a collaboration between a company and a specific researcher in the form of consulting. Then there is the midterm, which is basically kind of transfer of knowledge. You can think of what happens in European projects, where basically we take existing research and transfer that into industry. The third one, which for me is the most important one, but sometimes it's hard to see the benefit of it if you look too short term, this is the kind of the blue sky research. This is where basically researchers, professors, PhD students actually go and invent a thing that in 10 years' time will be considered like to be the hype. Just one example to show how it works is that now we talk a lot about deep learning, and there are companies that like IBM and Google that go and compete in games like Go and Jeopardy. Well, deep learning is a technology that started in the 70s, and it took its time to reach a level of maturity. Changes around the world in terms of the availability of data and the ability to work with stronger computation resources were very useful in that. Let me go back now to the financial institutes. So typically, in my experience, where you start working with a startup, you cannot do the long-term kind of thing. You really have to work on the short-term. Startups don't have the resources or the time to spend on research. So basically, the middle and long-term range research is being done usually with bigger institutes. And only recently, we started a new collaboration with Bank Hapoalim, which is the largest bank in Israel. We have now a data center at the Technion, where Bank Hapoalim actually delivers a lot of its data to our on campus, to a secured room where we can go about and do our research. I wouldn't say it was easy to negotiate the deal. There were a lot of misunderstandings at the beginning of what is research versus what are projects that we're going to run. And there was always the issue of the data. What really worked for us in the sense of the financial institutes is that they are very regulated in Israel, which means that it was very easy once we decided to go about that to follow the rules of the Bank of Israel of how to anonymize data in a way that it can be delivered to us in a secured way. In other situations where you deal with companies that have their own customers, you always have the issue of whether the customer is willing to let you use the data or not. In a recent case that I was involved in, we were allowed to use the data, but the customer got cold feet as soon as we were about to publish a paper, which means that we were not able to publish a paper. So this is one more thing, and that's the last thing I'm going to say here. What is really important to academia is publishing papers. So we're going to make our IP public. And if a company wants to keep its IP confidential, working with academia is going to be so much harder. But from my experience, there are many ways of making the IP public which without actually revealing the true secrets of an organization. So it's as soon as you understand that, it becomes so much easier to work with academia.